No further question? All right, I'm supposed to talk about this diencephalic and mesencephalic perforators and especially posterior choroidal arteries. However, as we know, all vascular system in the brain or in the body is balanced system. I mentioned, depending upon the need at the time of development of the vessel, the organ, okay, it recruits vascular supply or supply channels. Okay? So that's why we have a lot of variations. Same thing in the brain, deeper brain, it is balanced between anterior choroidal and posterior choroidal, and also basilar artery perforators. You heard already from Carell and Alan about the anterior choroidal and the shift of the supply, telencephalic supply, from anterior choroidal to or posterior choroidal systems. Okay? I'm sorry, you may hear repeated things, but I thought it's important to understand posterior choroidal and deeper diencephalic and mesencephalic supply to go over again from anterior choroidal artery system as well. Okay? Please tolerate with me if you hear, again, same thing. Okay? As we mentioned before, neural tube develops. As the neural tube initial stage was covered by the meninx primitiva, which is supplying the nutrients to the neural tubes. Then it started increasing the vesicles and invagination of this meninx and development of the choroidal systems. Okay? At the time, as neural tube develops further, there's a flexors occurs. There's a cerebral flexor, okay? And the cervical flexor because of this folding down. Okay? And as Carell mentioned, you have a prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. Okay? Prosencephalon develops into, say anything. Anybody know? Okay? You can say it. It develops into diencephalon and telencephalon. Telencephalon means most of the cortical regions. Okay? Mesencephalon stays as it is, as a mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon, cerebellum. Cerebellum is called metencephalon, and medulla oblongata is myelencephalon, right? So this is eventually the flexor and the development over telencephalon and diencephalon become more deeper structures. Okay? If you look at the details, how the structures goes, as this is actually summary of what develops from. Okay, telencephalon gets into hemisphere, olfactory, hippocampus, the basal ganglia, okay, and lateral and third ventricles. Okay, diencephalon. Can you see? It's a little blurred. Okay, diencephalon is the optic. Okay, thalamus, hypothalamus, and mammillary bodies and part of third ventricle. Mesencephalon, okay, tectum, okay, cerebral aqueduct, radionucleus, substantia nigra, and cerebrospinal bone. Okay, metencephalon becoming pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon is certainly becoming medulla oblongata. These are the structures developing from 3 usual embryonic vesicles. Okay, and then the areas which supplies the DN mesencephalon, and these are possible arterial systems: anterior choroidal, medial posterior choroidal, posterior lateral choroidal, thalamoperforate, and basilar arteries, such as illustrated here. Okay. And Alan showed you already diagram of patches. Okay, this is earlier and later stage. Okay. You can start to see this development of the anterior cerebral artery. internal carotid artery, cranial and caudal divisions of the internal carotid artery. There's important phylogenetic events happens. One of those are vertebral artery development, because initially blood flow was from above downward, so-called centropenal patterns from through the trigeminal arteries. As the vertebral artery develops, blood flow changes direction from below upward. Okay? Centrifugal appearances. Okay? Future of cerebral artery to basilar artery. We talk about symmetrical, asymmetrical fusions. Okay? We'll a little bit briefly talk about it later on. Okay? An important thing, what I'm going to say is transfer of anterior choroidal artery territory to posterior choroidal artery territory. You heard from Carell and Allen, and this is the third time you are hearing. Okay? This is a 9 mm stage. You can see this is cranial division, rostral division of the internal carotid artery, and this is just anterior cerebral artery. This is anterior choroidal artery, which is important part at this stage of supply. And this is caudal division. Between caudal division, there is artery, DN mesencephalic branch development. This is a future posterior choroidal artery. You can see now here, the anterior choroidal size territory is becoming smaller, and posterior choroidal artery territory is become larger. Okay? The Carell illustrated well to you. I have to repeat the same thing. We have a cranial division and caudal division of the internal carotid artery, and anterior cerebral artery territory, as I showed you before, previously, and anterior choroidal are two major arterial systems at early stage, pre-choroidal stage. Anterior choroidals at that stage supplies choroid, not only choroid, it also part of telencephalon is supplied. Caudal division has DN and mesencephalic branch. Okay, we'll see that. Okay, this is same diagram as Carell showed you. I'm sorry to repeating this, but I put it on colors to for me to understand a little bit better. We have this anterior cerebral artery and posterior cerebral artery, caudal division. Okay, from there, anterior choroidal artery is pink. Okay, DN and mesencephalic branch is orange. Okay, from this stage 1, and then anterior choroidal artery developing very large. Okay, it develops further, and portion of that also supply telencephalic regions. Okay, anterior cerebral artery giving off, okay, for this choroidal branch, which is actually at this stage anasmosis with anterior choroidal artery at the region of the foramen Monroe. Okay, origin of the internal cerebral vein, not internal cerebral vein, the vein of prosencephalon. Okay, and this is anasmosis. This is stage 2 called the choroidal stage. Okay, from this choroidal stage, what happens from here to here? Now you have a further development of DN mesencephalic branch, and there is a large branch coming off from this trunk, eventually become lateral posterior choroidal artery. This connects with anterior choroidal artery at this stage. This is connection. Okay, from this stage, now telencephalic intermediate caudal. Okay, this is stage 3. Stage 4, you can see the further development of diencephalic mesencephalic branch. This is eventually becoming medial posterior choroidal artery. Very good. Okay, and lateral posterior choroidal artery become larger, and further connection occurs with anterior choroidal artery system. Okay? Anterior choroidal artery system still has some of telencephalic supply, which also anasmosis with the telencephalic branch of anterior cerebral artery and continuing connection in the region of internal cerebral vein origin and interventricular foramina and Monroe region. Okay, this is stage 4. From the stage 4, stage 5, now most of the anterior choroidal artery territory, which is supposed to be a large territory, telencephalic, as well as choroid plexus area, that's taken over by lateral posterior choroidal artery, which is continuing to go to interventricular foraminal region, connecting with developing medial posterior choroidal artery. This is where the anastomosis happens. Okay? And then now we have adult type, which has anterior choroidal artery is becoming limited to the basal ganglia and some portion of the temporal lobe supply. And this is lateral posterior choroidal artery has more choroid and telencephalic supplies. Okay? Anterior choroidal, which Alan told you in details of the anterior choroidal artery. Anterior choroidal artery does have perforating supplies, perforating branches to the brainstem, and choroid plexus also supplying. Okay, and also there is medial temporal lobe is supplied by this anterior choroidal artery. There's a two trunks, cranial division, which is supplying globus pallidus and piriform cortex. Okay, and rhinencephaly is supplied by the anterior choroidal artery. Caudal division, which is going optic tract, optic radiation, lateral geniculate body of the hippocampus, and some of the internal capsule, posterior lobe of internal capsule, and cerebral peduncle. Portion of the cerebral peduncle is supplied by this. Okay, and course of the artery, certainly from the posterior surface of the internal choroidal artery, it goes medial to the uncus, goes around and enters, and the supply goes to the medial portion of the temporal lobe and enters choroid plexus, choroid fissure, and supply the choroid plexus. This is one example of course of the anterior choroidal artery. Another example of the anterior choroidal artery is going, you can see it here, choroid getting into the choroid fissure, into the ventricle, temporal home of the lateral ventricle. This is clearly illustrates anterior choroidal artery is supplying medial temporal lobe by this another division of the anterior choroidal artery. Okay, this is you can see normally what we see is anterior choroidal artery, and the choroidal point is here. The things. But anyway, just to illustrate the course and supply, okay, I think this is where it enters into the ventricle. You can see the supply to the ventricle going along the temporal home of lateral ventricle and getting into that. Okay? There is an amazing book by George Solomon. George Solomon published in 1971 this book. This is, I don't know, you can get it, maybe it's becoming a rare book, but he illustrated very well the arterial territory, arterial supply territory of a deeper brain very well. He cut it through this, and as well as the axial, coronal, and sagittal sections to illustrate each territories of the vascular supplies. If you look at anterior choroidal artery supply, this is where midbrain level, you can see the anterior choroidal artery supply. This is anterior choroidal artery supply. Little bit above, you can see the supply going in there. And thalamus level is opposite side, but you can see this territory is anterior choroidal artery supply, and this eventually go atrial level and supply the choroid plexus this way. Okay? As both Carell and Allen demonstrated, this anterior choroidal artery may maintain telencephalic territorial supplies. This is a case video is running anyway. Okay, and you can see this is posterior cerebral artery, this is anterior choroidal artery, and supplying dominantly temporal lobe. Okay? Temporal lobe territory is supplied, maintained, and instead of posterior cerebral artery, anterior choroidal artery is supplying. Oh, this is moving. Okay. You can see the relationship. And all days, somebody mentioned, published about double posterior cerebral artery. Okay. Double posterior cerebral artery is misunderstanding of persistent telencephalic supply of anterior choroidal artery. There's no such a thing as double posterior cerebral artery. Okay? This is another example. You can see this is going more calcarine territory of posterior cerebral artery. Okay? This is moving, and this is supplying more temporal lobe. Okay? About a month ago, I was preparing this trip, and I looked at it. It's interesting to see which territories are supplied by the anterior choroidal arteries. Okay? I look at a total anterior choroidal artery with a telencephalic supply, holding telencephalic. There's 25 cases in my file. Okay? I look at it, temporal lobe alone. Okay? Dominantly supply is 10 cases. You can see this one of the examples is temporal lobe is supplied by the anterior choroidal artery. Calcarine cortex alone is only one case. Okay? Temporal lobe and calcarine cortex is 11 cases. Parietal, okay? Parietal occipital region only is 2 cases, and parietal occipital and calcarine cases were 1 case. What's interesting, depending, individual cases, is different territories are maintained. Okay? And sometimes you may see common origin from anterior choroidal and posterior communicating on the posterior cerebral artery. You mentioned, as Alan showed you several cases of common origin. The origin may be incorporated with aneurysm formations. Okay? And you can see this thalamoperforator and anterior choroidal artery is coming same trunk as posterior cerebral artery, posterior communicating artery. Okay? Posterior choroidal artery, we know 2 posterior choroidal arteries. Okay? We mentioned medial posterior choroidal artery is going into the velum interpositum and anasmosis with either anterior cerebral or lateral posterior choroidal artery. Lateral posterior choroidal artery can have a more dominant supply to the telencephalon and part of the choroid plexus as well. In actual angiogram, when I was a resident, our neuroradiologist said on lateral view, to recognize medial posterior choroidal artery is reverse 3. Reverse 3 is configuration is medial posterior choroidal artery configuration and lateral projection. Posterior medial choroidal artery originates usually P1 or P1, P2 junction, courses around the midbrain and enters talachoroidale and goes to the roof of third ventricle, right? And supplies midbrain, tectum, thalamus, fornix, and medial genicular body is supplied. Okay? This is one example of the arteriovenous malformation of third ventricle. You can see selective injection of posterior medial choroidal artery and AP and lateral projection in microcatheter tip is here, and you can see the course of this posterior medial choroidal artery and goes to the velum interpositum and eventually goes to the third ventricle supply this arteriovenous malformation. This is exactly the same configuration going around and supplying, getting into the third ventricle and supplying like this. Okay? This is Philip gave me this picture to illustrate a similar way. Medial posterior choroidal artery is certainly supplying a medial portion of thalamus as well, Okay? This is a selective injection. I mean the vertebral and carotid injections of this AVM, which is located medial portion of the thalamus. You can see the medial posterior choroidal artery is dominant supply going around the brainstem and supplying the back posterior part of the tectum as well as midbrain. Okay? Another example of the AVM of tectum, and you can see the selective injection goes around the brainstem and gets to supplant the superior and inferior colliculus and supplying of this arteriovenous malformation coming from medial posterior choroidal artery. This is again both right and left side of the medial posterior choroidal artery is supplying this AVM of the posterior part of the midbrain of this patient. Okay? Posterior lateral choroidal artery originates from the P2 segment. It courses behind the pulvina and enters ventricles through the temporal horn or A2. It may go through the A2 as well. It supplies midbrain, thalamus, caudate nucleus, fornix, and choroid plexus are supplied by the medial lateral posterior choroidal artery. This is axial and coronal section of the George Solomon's book. You can see this territory as branches of posterior lateral choroidal artery and supplying getting into the atrium and supplying the portion of the thalamus. This is, you can see, patient has bilateral thalamic arteriovenous malformation. This is illustration of the course of the medial posterior choroidal and lateral posterior choroidal artery. Okay, AP lateral, you can see, especially the lateral is more lateral going around the pulpina and goes into the ventricle this way. And this is going just around the brainstem and enters. This is different course of posterior lateral and posterior medial choroidal artery. This is, you can see, patient that developed a small hemorrhage in thalamus because of this small arteriovenous malformation. Selective injection actually shows how it runs. Okay, runs the course and how it reaches this AVM in posterior thalamus. This is good example of. This is patient had arteriovenous fistula of internal cerebral vein. This is, what do you think it is? This is vertebral. This is left carotid injections. This is, huh? I don't hear you. This is AP of left carotid, lateral of vertebral, lateral of. This is right, posterior medial choroidal artery reaching the shunt. Okay, third ventricle. This is, what is this one? It's a medial side, it must be medial. Two branches, and this is lateral posterior choroidal. No, I don't think it's anterior choroidal. This is more both medial and posterior choroidal. Okay? On the left side, you can see the medial, lateral. Medial is the one which goes a long way, and lateral is the one which goes more of the lateral side. But anyway, in addition to this medial, the posterior choroidal artery, these perforating thalamoperforators play important role in supply of these mesencephalon and as well as brainstem and pons and regions. Okay? There is an anterior group and posterior group. Okay? Anterior thalamoperforator and posterior thalamoperforator. You can see on the lateral projection, some of the thalamoperforator anterior group may come from the posterior communicating arteries. Okay? This is one example. You can see both posterior anterior group, okay, and visualized here. Okay, and Carl told you about the fusion of the posterior cerebral artery to basilar artery. Okay? One thing I like to add is trigeminal regression period. Time of regression of trigeminal artery plays important role in fusion, whether it's a caudal fusion or it's a cranial fusion. If it's late, trigeminal artery stays late, it's more of what do you think? Caudal fusion. Okay? Because the flow is going from trigeminal down more longer. If it's early regression, okay? Early regression, you need more antegrade flow, the earlier than late regression, so you have more cranial fusion at this stage. Okay? Cranial fusion is about, according to Philip, is 25%. And important thing is where perforated branches are coming. In case of the symmetrical, it's on each side gives off the perforated branches. If it's asymmetrical, on one side gives a more dominant supply to diencephalic and mesencephalic. Okay, one trunk from cranial side supply bilateral, mesencephalic, mammillary bodies, and thalama and bilateral. Okay? Caudal side may give a small diencephalic branch, okay, ipsilateral, mammillary body, or cerebropedal, and third nerve as well. Okay, this is one example of one-sided not fused, okay, unilateral, but there's a tiny diencephalic branch coming from, okay, P1 segment, okay, of P1 segment of the caudal side of that post P1 segment. Okay, patient had thalamic infarct, is unilateral. What do you expect? Symmetrical or asymmetrical? Symmetrical fusion. Okay. This is patient had bilateral. Asymmetrical fusion. Okay, so you know this already. Okay? Do we have time? Anyway, one more thing I'd like to mention is this is a dissecting aneurysm of the P2, P3 segment. This was closed, but patient did not develop any neurological deficit because of there's a collateral coming from anterior choroidal to posterior choroidal and posterior cerebral artery. Okay? So I showed a picture of the anterior choroidal anastomotic, the connecting to posterior lateral choroidal artery. This is anastomosis plays sometimes important role reconstituting occluded distal portion of the brainstem, posterior cerebral artery. Okay, this is just a few minutes on the spinal cord. Brainstem and the spinal cord areas. The brainstem is similar to the spinal cord. Okay, the circle as spinal cord has a circle branches which is supplying central fugal patterns. There's perforating branches coming from posteriorly as well. And you may see this is beautiful things, but takes a longer time. But sometimes you will have a direct perforating branch from the P1 segment or main trunk of a basilar artery. This patient had dissection of the P1, P2 segment, which eventually developed infarct of the cerebropedal. And this patient did recover relatively well. And this patient has a brain AVM on the surface and portion of the midbrain as well. This is supplied by the perforating branch of the P1 segment as well. Okay, infarcts. Okay, that's a spinal cord infarct. Okay, there's a small perforating branches may get occluded and causing infarcts such as this one. And this patient is more often is unilateral. Okay? The brainstem infarcts are more unilateral, just like a sulcal branch of the spinal, anterior spinal artery gives on only one side of that. And however, this patient has bilateral sulcal infarct, and this is occlusion of the perforating from the vertebral artery itself. Due to the dissection of vertebral artery, you can see the infarct in the medulla region. Okay, this patient did have a subarachnoid hemorrhage from dissection of the basilar artery. This was treated with a stent and coil placement and partially treated, and patient developed a little of brainstem infarct and follow angiogram shows complete healing of the dissection as well. Okay, this was another example of the occlusion of the vertebral artery causing medulla infarct. Okay, this is just an interesting case, and patient had the 6-minute pulse, only 6-minute pulse. You can see little infarct. Okay? This caused a 6-minute pulse, I believe. Okay, this is summary of what we discussed. This is picture on a diagram of Pierre's book and of volume 1 of section 6. Okay, intradural arteries. Okay, this numbered all 18 different arteries are numbered. Okay, let's a little bit. Let's spend some time to go over what we're seeing here. Okay, 2. This is anterior choroidal artery. Okay, and as we saw, this lateral choroidal artery. This is medial posterior choroidal artery. This is anterior. This is posterior group of thalamoperforator, and this is 11 and 12 is anterior group of thalamoperforators. There's a medial and lateral divisions. 13 is, this is not seen very often, but this is fornix choroidal artery of A1 segment, and which is also giving same branch as posterior pericallosal artery, giving off similar artery going along the fornix. Okay? So this is summarizing the last case. This is patient has this brain AVM, medial surface of the thalamus and along the third ventricle. Okay, and you see MRI. This is angiogram. Vertebral, left internal, right internal, left internal. Okay, you can see supply coming from perforating thalamus perforator. Okay, and then you can see the supply coming from lateral posterior choroidal, and difficult to recognize, but anterior posterior choroidal. We'll go in details of this case. Remember, angiogram detailed during the workshops. Okay, but this is what you have here. Okay. Oh. Hey, my movie. Movie is not working. But anyway, I'll show you a movie during the workshop. Okay, this is what we illustrate, and medial and lateral posterior choroidal, anterior choroidal, and thalamoperforators. Okay, and last word, we have to remember to differentiate this. Thalamoperforators are subependymal arteries. Okay, however, there's a similar appearance of the artery, but this is transmesencephalic artery. This is going through the brain, going through this midbrain and reaches this AVM. This artery is dangerous to embolize. Okay? If you're not passing the midbrain, and you can cause actually infarct in midbrain. Okay? You have to differentiate this thalamoperforator versus just transmesencephalic arteries. Okay? This is kind of complex discussion, but hopefully you don't mind and we repeat it a few times. Okay? And any questions? I'm sorry, it didn't move, it didn't work. Yeah.